My name is Vorath Sulen, Senior Observer, 3rd Tier Reconnaissance Division, Galactic Oversight Council, and I am filing this report, under protest. Not because my superiors will disbelieve me, no. They will believe every single word. That is in fact the problem, because once they read what happened on this assignment, they will send me back, and I would rather eat raw Kelthari moss for the rest of my natural lifespan than set one foot on that planet again. The planet in question is called Earth. You have heard of it, probably. Most of the civilized galaxy has heard of it by now. The little blue world in an unremarkable solar system, orbiting an average star, populated by a species that refers to itself with a word that roughly translates to the wise ones. Oh yes. They call themselves the Wise Ones. I assure you, after 6 standard rotations of direct field observation, I have many thoughts about that particular piece of self-branding. Many thoughts. But let me begin at the beginning. The Council deployed our unit to Earth after the preliminary survey team filed its initial report. That report described the humans as, and I am quoting directly here, a pre-tier civilization with moderate tool use, localized conflict patterns, and no viable biological deterrent. Estimated pacification timeline, 6 standard cycles or fewer. 6 cycles. That was the estimate. The report was filed by Survey Officer Denik Pala. Denik has since requested early retirement. I understand completely. I would have done the same thing. Our team arrived in orbit above the northern landmass of Earth's primary continent cluster. Standard insertion. Cloaked atmospheric entry. We deployed 3 ground observation units, myself, my field partner Ossa, and our biological analyst, a researcher by the name of Thun Breck, who had previously spent 4 years studying microorganisms on the ocean moons of the Sarev system. Thun thought he was prepared for anything biological. Thun was wrong. Our first ground deployment was in a region of the northern continent the humans call a temperate forest. It was supposed to be a routine survey. Walk in, observe local fauna, catalog environmental data, walk out. Simple. Allow me to describe what a temperate forest actually is, for anyone reading this report who has not had the extreme personal misfortune of standing inside one. It is a vertical city, constructed entirely out of living organisms, growing in every direction, on top of each other, through each other, competing for light and space with a savagery that would make any military strategist take notes. The trees themselves reach heights of 30 meters or more, their upper canopies blocking nearly all direct solar radiation from reaching the ground. Below the canopy, a second layer of shorter trees fights for whatever light filters down. Below that, shrubs. Below that, ground plants. Below the ground plants, fungi. Below the fungi, bacteria. Layer upon layer upon layer of organisms, each one absolutely refusing to die, absolutely refusing to yield space to anything else. And the animals. By the 12 cold moons of Vorath Prime, the animals. We had taken 12 steps into the forest edge when Ossa stopped moving. I looked at her. Her environmental scanner was emitting a low, continuous tone. Motion sensors, she said. What kind of motion? I asked. She looked at the readout. Then she looked at me. Then she looked back at the readout, apparently hoping the numbers had changed. They had not changed. All kinds, she said. She was not exaggerating. The scanner was logging movement from approximately 340 distinct biological entities within a 40-meter radius of our position. Not aggressive movement, not territorial display, simply movement, constant, ceaseless, things crawling under bark, things moving through leaf litter, things hanging from branches, things inside the branches, things that had built structures between the branches using material produced from their own bodies. Thun was already hyperventilating slightly. The insect density alone is, he started. He stopped. He started again. The insect density alone is equivalent to the entire recorded fauna of the Chthon Plains Preserve on Galar 4. That is a protected nature reserve, I said. Yes, said Thun. It is. The whole thing. In every 40 square meters of this forest. We stood there for a moment, processing that. Then something stung Ossa on the neck. She slapped at it. She looked at her hand. There was a small, flat, multi-legged creature there. She showed it to Thun. Thun scanned it. Tick, he said. Arachnid parasite. Feeds on blood. Potentially carries several dozen transmissible pathogens. Ossa stared at the creature. It is the size of my thumbnail. They get larger, said Thun. How much larger? Said Ossa. Thun checked his scanner. Current specimen, larval stage. Adult form is approximately 3 times this size, and they just sit on plants, waiting. Waiting, confirmed Thun. They detect body heat, carbon dioxide exhalation, movement vibrations, and then they drop onto or walk onto passing organisms and begin feeding. Ossa looked around at the surrounding vegetation with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Ossa Veric had served in 3 active combat deployments in the Outer Rim. She had once disarmed a fully charged plasma cannon with her bare hands because someone had misplaced the deactivation tool. She was looking at a bush like it had personally insulted her ancestors. Every bush, she said. Every single bush out there. Statistically, said Thun. Yes, we retreated to the forest edge. This was day 1. Day 2, we decided to try a different biome. Grasslands. Open terrain. Surely, we agreed, open terrain would be more manageable. Clear sight lines, fewer vertical surfaces, less opportunity for things to ambush us from above. The human name for the region was Savanna. Within the first hour, we observed the following. Item 1. A large mammal the humans call a buffalo, moving in a herd of approximately 400 individuals. Each animal weighed between 600 and 900 kilograms. They moved in a mass that shook the ground. When Ossa's scanner pinged at too high a frequency, the nearest animals turned their heads toward us with an attention that I found deeply, profoundly unsettling, given that we were cloaked and theoretically invisible. They could hear us, possibly smell us, despite full stealth protocols. Item 2. A large feline predator, which I later identified as a lion, sleeping in the shade of a single tree. We walked past it at a distance of 60 meters. It opened one eye. It watched us. It did not move. It simply watched, with the calm, complete certainty of something that has never, in its entire evolutionary history, had a reason to run from anything. Item 3. A small black and white mammal that Thun identified as a honey badger. Thun made us stop for a full 20 minutes to observe it. What is it doing? I asked. It is eating a venomous snake, said Thun. Is the snake? I started. Yes, said Thun. The snake is still alive, and the honey badger does not appear to care, said Thun. His voice had the quality of someone fundamentally reassessing their life choices. They are largely immune to most venoms. They have been recorded being bitten multiple times by some of the continent's most toxic serpents, going unconscious briefly, waking up, and continuing to eat. We watched the honey badger finish its meal. It shook the remaining snake carcass once, the way you might shake a piece of food to remove excess seasoning. Then it walked away, with the gait of something that had won every argument it had ever been in and expected to continue winning indefinitely. I want to go back to the ship, said Ossa. We have 4 more rotations of field observations scheduled, I said. I know, said Ossa. I still want to go back to the ship. That night, from orbit, I began composing the preliminary section of this report. I wrote 2 sentences, then I deleted them. Then I wrote 3 more, then I deleted those 2. The problem was simple. How do you write a threat assessment for a planet where the threat is not soldiers, not weapons, not technology, not any of the things the Council's assessment frameworks are designed to evaluate? The threat, I was beginning to understand, was the planet itself. Every living thing on this world had been shaped by billions of years of competing with every other living thing on this world. There was no apex. There was no final predator. There was no organism that had at any point in Earth's history simply stopped being challenged. Even the humans, who sat at the top of their food chain by virtue of tool use and cooperative behavior, were still regularly being eaten by sharks, stung to anaphylactic shock by insects the size of a finger joint, and felled by pathogens so small they were invisible to the naked eye. This planet had not produced soldiers. It had produced something far more concerning. It had produced survivors. Day 3. I want to be very clear about something before I describe Day 3. I am a trained professional. I have logged over 200 field deployments across 47 catalogued worlds. I have observed civilizations at every stage of development. I have walked through the ruins of species that destroyed themselves before we ever made contact. I have stood on the surface of a moon with an atmosphere so toxic that our suits registered 11 separate contamination warnings simultaneously. None of that prepared me for the ocean. It was Thun's idea. Of course it was Thun's idea. Our biological analyst had spent the previous evening reviewing his ocean survey data with the kind of wide-eyed fascination that, in retrospect, should have been a warning sign. He kept making small sounds, not alarmed sounds, interested sounds, which was somehow worse. The ocean, he said at breakfast, covers approximately 71% of the planetary surface. I am aware, I said, and the depth. The average depth is around 3,600 meters, but some regions reach nearly 11,000 meters. Also aware. And the Council's preliminary survey only sampled surface-level water data, he continued. Nothing below the photic zone, nothing from the deep water columns, nothing from the benthic layer at all. I looked at him. Thun. We should go look, he said. We should absolutely not go look, said Ossa, not looking up from her meal. We went to look. We did not enter the water. I want that on record. We are field observers, not marine explorers, and our suits were not rated for pressures beyond 400 meters depth. Instead, we deployed a small remote sensor array from a coastal cliff face on the western edge of the primary landmass. The array descended on a tether, transmitting data back to our handheld units in real time. The first 300 meters were busy, not threatening, precisely, just busy. Fish in quantities that strained our counter-algorithms, gelatinous organisms drifting in slow, purposeless columns, things with more limbs than could possibly be necessary for any reasonable biological function. Then the array passed 400 meters, then 600, then 800, and the data started getting interesting. At 900 meters, the array's passive sonar registered a large biological contact. Not large in the way the buffalo herd was large. Large in the way that requires a moment of very quiet, very still recalibration before you trust the number on the screen. That reading, I said. Yes, said Thun. That cannot be accurate. I have triple-checked the calibration, said Thun. It is accurate. The contact was approximately 26 meters in length, moving slowly, at depth, in total darkness, at a pressure that would reduce our observation suits to flat panels of composite material in under 2 seconds. What is it? Said Ossa. Her voice was very controlled. Thun scanned through his biological database. He found the match in under 4 seconds. He looked at the screen. He looked at us. He looked at the screen again. It is called a sperm whale, he said. It is a mammal. It breathes air, like the humans. It is warm-blooded, like the humans. It lives at 900 meters depth, I said. It can go deeper, said Thun. Recorded dives exceed 2,000 meters. Duration over 90 minutes on a single breath. We stood on the cliff. We watched the sensor readout. The massive contact moved in a slow arc below us. Completely indifferent to our presence. Completely indifferent to the crushing dark and cold surrounding it. Completely at home in a place that would kill almost anything else on the planet in under 2 minutes. Pull the array up, said Ossa. We still have 600 meters of tether left, said Thun. Pull the array up, said Ossa. We pulled the array up. That evening I added 3 new pages to my report. Then I deleted 2 of them because they contained language that I did not feel was appropriate for an official council document. Words like unreasonable and excessive, and at one point a phrase that I will not reproduce here but which accurately described my emotional state upon learning that the ocean also contained creatures called mantis shrimp that could strike with the force of a small caliber projectile weapon using nothing but a specialized limb that had evolved specifically and exclusively for the purpose of hitting things as hard as physically possible. They are the size of a human hand. They punch through aquarium glass for fun or territory. The researchers apparently are not entirely certain. Day 4 brought us to what the humans call a rainforest. I will not spend as long on the rainforest as it deserves, because this report already exceeds standard length parameters and I have 3 more pages of biological anomalies to cover before I reach the section on actual human behavior, which is arguably even more concerning than the ecosystem they live in. The Rainforest Summary, brief version. It contains approximately half of all the species on the entire planet, compressed into an area representing less than 6% of the total land surface. The humidity alone was enough to make our external sensors behave strangely. The noise level was continuous and layered. Things called frogs, which were the size of my thumbnail, produced calls loud enough to be detected on our audio equipment from 300 meters away. There were plants that ate insects, There were insects that farmed other insects. There were fungi that infected ant brains and rewired their behavior to serve the fungi's reproductive cycle. I read that last entry to Ossa. She was quiet for a long time. The fungus, she said. Yes. Controls the ant. Yes. By growing into its brain. By growing into specific regions of its brain, yes. Essentially overriding the ant's motor control while keeping it alive. And this, she said slowly, evolved, naturally, on this planet, approximately 48 million years ago, based on the fossil record, said Thun, with the enthusiasm of someone who has fully accepted that the universe is more alarming than previously understood, and has decided to find it fascinating rather than distressing. The humans have a name for the affected ants. They call them zombie ants. They named it, said Ossa. They name everything, I said. That is in fact one of the things I need to address in the behavioral section of this report. And here we arrive at the part that the Council will find most relevant. Because the planet's ecosystem, while deeply, fundamentally, almost personally hostile to outside observers, is not in itself what prompted me to file this report at emergency priority level. What prompted the emergency priority was Day 5. Day 5, we observed the humans directly. Extended observation. Multiple population centers, different geographical regions. We watched them in what they call cities. We watched them in rural settlements. We watched them in the forests and on the coasts and in their vehicles that moved at speeds their unprotected bodies absolutely should not be able to survive a crash at, but which they drove anyway, with an expression of mild boredom. Here is what I need the Council to understand. The humans know what lives on their planet. They know about the ticks. They check for them after walking in the forest, with the calm routine of someone checking their pockets for a communication device. They know about the venomous snakes. They have entire organizations dedicated to capturing, studying, and sometimes relocating venomous snakes. They know about the deep ocean. They have sent vehicles down there, on purpose, to look around. They named the deepest point. They have been to it. They have been to it multiple times. They have a television program dedicated to following large sharks with cameras. The purpose of the program is entertainment. Humans watch it because they enjoy it. There is a sport, where humans jump out of functional aircraft, without propulsion, and fall toward the ground at terminal velocity, and then, at the last possible interval, deploy a fabric device to slow their descent. They pay money to do this. It is recreational. They do it on weekends. I watched a human child, no older than 6 of their years, pick up a large beetle from the ground. An adult nearby told the child to put it down. The child put it down. Then, the moment the adult looked away, the child picked it up again and smiled. 6 years old, already negotiating with the ecosystem. What the preliminary survey team missed, what Denik Pala's report failed to capture, was not a data gap. It was a fundamental category error. They looked at the humans and asked, do they have weapons? Do they have warships? Do they have biological or chemical deterrents? The answer to all of those questions is yes. Obviously yes. Emphatically yes. But that is not the point. The point is that the humans did not build those things and then become dangerous. The humans were forged dangerous by 4 billion years of a planet that never, not once, allowed anything to become complacent. The weapons and the warships are simply the most recent expression of something that was already baked into the species at the cellular level. They are not aggressive, not primarily, not in the way the Council classifies aggression. They are adaptive. They are relentlessly, almost pathologically adaptive. Every system on their world that tried to kill them, they studied. Every predator that hunted them, they either avoided, drove to extinction, or tamed and made a pet. They live alongside animals that could kill them without effort, and they have decided that the correct response to this is to build fences and charge admission for visitors to observe both the humans and the animals together. They made a zoo for the things that could kill them, and they bring their children. My final recommendation to the Galactic Oversight Council is as follows. Do not assess Earth as a pre-tier civilization requiring pacification or management. Reclassify it immediately, not because the humans have earned military recognition, not because their technology meets our standard thresholds, but because any species that grew up inside that ecosystem and came out the other side still curious, still exploring, Still picking up beetles and naming ocean predators and jumping out of aircraft for fun. Any species that looked at a planet that was actively, continuously, creatively trying to kill them for billions of years, and won, does not need our assessment of their threat level. They need us to hope, very quietly and very sincerely, that we never give them a reason to notice us. This is Vorath Sulen, Senior Observer, 3rd Tier Reconnaissance Division. Closing report. Requesting immediate reassignment to literally anywhere else.